Welcome to Fi Friday Feedback on the Fi Guys podcast, where we recap key takeaways from our most recent episode in order to help cement the information in your mind. We'll also be providing insights to burning questions from our community members in the viewer mailbag.
Remember, the Fi Guys podcast is your trusted source for all things financial independence, and we're thrilled to have you here with us on this journey. So whether you're listening while commuting, at the gym, or just relaxing at home, we're here to provide you with the knowledge and inspiration you need to achieve your financial goals. The Fi Guys is a podcast dedicated to providing general information and insights on a wide range of wealth-related topics. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not constitute personalized financial advice.
The content provided in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It should not be considered a substitute for professional financial advice. Your financial situation and goals are unique, and the information provided here may not be applicable or suitable for your specific circumstances.
We, the host and the guests of the Fi Guys, are not acting as your financial advisor. We are not aware of your individual financial situations, risk tolerance, or investment objectives. Any decisions or actions you take based on the information provided on this podcast are your own and made at your own risk. I may be a financial advisor, but I am not your financial advisor. And now that the lawyers are happy, let's get started. Welcome back to Fi Friday Feedback. We're the Fi Guys. I'm Chris. He's Dom. Today we're going to be talking all about boundaries. Hopefully you had an episode or a chance to go and listen back to episode 154, all about setting financial boundaries and boundaries in general. And today we're going to be continuing that conversation. So Dom, I want to open it up with you. Rather than talking all about financial boundaries, I say we just kind of talk about our struggles with boundaries, because that was one of the big reasons that we said, let's do this podcast. Maybe we can teach our listeners how to do it, since we're really bad at setting it for ourselves.
Yeah, right. That's kind of the idea is, if you're not good at something, maybe if you teach it, you'll be a little bit better and you'll learn more about it yourself. Yeah, absolutely. I think, while this is a financial podcast, right, we understand that, we recognize that. That's what the FI means in financial independence. But one of the things that most people take advantage of are time. Right? It's time. It's a resource we can't generate. We can't get it back. No Benjamin Button situation here. No Marty McFly time machine. Can't get any of that stuff back. Right? So one of the things that I find myself having to enforce is the boundaries around my time. And it sucks, right? Because I can, if I have $1 million, I have $1 million, right? Or I can have $2 million, right? It varies. But I only have 24 hours in the day, right? It's a finite resource, right? So it's very precious. And what we do with that resource is very important. And what other people try and do with my resource is also very important. Get out of my way, people. But yeah, no, in today's episode, like Chris talked about, we're going to be talking about our struggles a little bit with setting boundaries. I mean, we just got out of a holiday season where boundaries were pushed, boundaries were demolished. Honestly, I mean, if you didn't have a holiday season where your boundaries weren't pushed, did you even have a holiday season? I don't know. But Chris, did you have anything this holiday that really kind of pushed your boundaries that you want to share with the class?
Yeah. I mean, I would like to kind of go back to some work situations that have happened more recently around, this is what we need from you in terms of your time. Like, this is how much time we need you here in the office. This is, one of the things that happened most recently is, I work an 8 to 5 typically. And what ended up coming up was our supervisors were saying, hey, we need you to stay later so that we can do training. We can do like training and stuff because there's no time during the day. To which me and my co-partners were like, there's lots of time in the day that we could definitely find between 8 and 5. And I remember, like, while they were having that conversation, I was just sitting there like, oh my God, like, I'm gonna have to straight up just say like, no, like, that's just not going to happen. And one of my coworkers, they ended up doing this thing that I've never seen before, but I loved it. It was an absolute jujitsu move. The supervisors were like, hey, like, we told you guys that we want you to stay later so we can do training. And you guys and all of you guys just said, no, like, we're not going to do that. We can't do that because of this. And then they said, like, and that kind of, it made us feel like you didn't care about this job and like you don't want to grow and get better. And one of my coworkers said, I thank you so much for telling us that feedback. Like, that feedback is really valuable. And we definitely hear that. So thank you. And that was it.
And that was it.
That's all we said. And then our supervisor was like, Yeah, no problem. He goes, yeah, like, that's very valuable feedback, and I will definitely take that, and we'll internalize that. And, we just kind of sat in that awkwardness, and, so did our supervisors, just sitting in that awkwardness until they were like, okay, then. And we just kind of moved past it. And like, it hasn't come back up. And that was like such a strong level move that I've never seen someone do. Didn't over explain themselves, didn't sit there and try to justify why they can't stay late. Just say, thank you for telling me what you need. And then we've already told them in the past, no. And that was a pretty cool one that I got to like kind of watch happen, like right in front of me. And I was like, I'm stealing that.
I love that. I love that. I remember when you told me that story the first time off the pod. I think it was like last week or something, or a few days ago. And I was like, oh man, that's insane. Like, I always have respect for people who do like judo in real life, but that mental judo is just something that I want to get a little bit better at. Because it seems like everyone around me is a much better debater than myself. So we gotta meet this guy. Maybe we'll have him on the pod, but that's awesome. I thank you for that feedback. It's very valuable. And then you just stare into their soul. Yeah, I like that. That's freaking awesome. So your work is trying to take away one of the resources that you really can't get back, a resource that you're already spending a great amount of time at. And you said 8 to 5. Now, is that with commute, or how does
No,
that work?
that does not include commute.
Okay.
Yeah, that's 8 hours with an hour break, with an hour lunch.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because I know, California traffic can be a little bit, not a little bit, it can be crazy sometimes, right? So, and I assume it's not like you live across the street from your work, right? It's not like a 5-minute walk or anything like that. It's a sizable amount. You know, do you find that it's more difficult to enforce and set boundaries with your work or with your family?
I think definitely with my family. It's definitely more complicated with my family. Over the Christmas holiday, we had a family boundary that was pushed, and the way that my family kind of works and has always worked is like, just push that stuff under the rug. Don't talk about it. Like,
Yep.
just everyone shut up and just shut up. Everyone just be quiet. And like we talked about, if you let those boundaries and those things get pushed, and you have those feelings and you can't name them, and you allow them to fester, that's at the point where, you're at a Christmas party in 20, 30 years, and then someone drops the gravy, and, everyone loses their mind and starts throwing things. Like, you don't want it to be at that point. You don't want it to, every time you go around your family, to feel like it's a powder keg. So you need to be able to have that communication. And that's something that, I wanted to have my wife on the podcast, because when it comes to boundaries, like, my wife is the queen of setting boundaries and being able to enforce them. And she's so good with that. So she was the one that pushed me to be like, hey, we need to have these conversations with your family. And at first I felt myself being like, no, we don't need to do this. Like, let's just not do this, because this is the way that we've always done it. And after we did enforce our boundaries, everything just felt so much better and so much lighter, and everyone was able to communicate a lot better as a family. And you had to go through that awkwardness. You had to go through that struggle. And it's okay, because we made it on the other end, because we were willing to not only communicate once about what the boundary is, communicate about the boundary, and then communicate about what we're going to do moving forward.
That's so exciting. I mean, you see a genuine smile on my face, because I'm in the pre-stage. I'm in the Chris before the conversation. Like, there's boundaries I need to enforce that I'm not sure how to have those conversations, and to know and to see how you react to, dude, I'm alive on the other side. In fact, I'm thriving on the other side. This is amazing. It reminds me of this story I heard last week. And a man falls in a hole, right? Man falls in a hole. A doctor, and he can't get out. Man falls in a hole. He can't get out. He's looking up at the entrance, right where he fell in, and he's like crying out. He's crying for help. And a doctor walks by, and he says, "Doctor, doctor, help! I've fallen in a hole." He writes him a prescription, throws it in, and keeps walking. A priest walks by. He says, "Father, Father, I've fallen in a hole. Please help." He writes him a prayer, throws it in, keeps walking by. And his buddy walks by, Tom, and he's like, "Tom, Tom, help. I've fallen in a hole. Help me." And Tom jumps in the hole. And he says, "Tom, why would you do that? Now we're both stuck in the hole." And Tom says, "It's okay. I've been down here before, and I know the way out." And the way that you told your story is you're Tom. You jumped in the hole to save me because I feel like I'm stuck in this weird area where I have boundaries that I want to enforce. I don't feel comfortable. I don't want you coming over to my house unannounced. I don't want to have to do this every single day, XYZ. And you jumped in the hole to tell me, hey, I know the way out. I know that you're going to be okay on the other side. And I think we all need friends like that. And I think it's important to kind of continue this conversation about boundaries and how to set them. And dude, that'd be so cool if your wife came on the pod. I won't deny. The master, what was the thing we said last podcast? The oh my gosh. The boundary master?
Boundary wizard, yeah, something like
Boundary
that.
wizard. Yeah, she's the boundary wizard. She's the boundary master. I love that. But I think that's beautiful, Chris, because I know a lot of people struggle with the anxiety over the idea of conflict, not the conflict, but the anxiety of the coming conflict. But also they wrestle with the stress of that what is that's already stressing them out. So you got two different hands in play here. And you're saying that, hey, I went through the storm. I set a boundary. I enforced the boundary. And not only are things good, I mean, would you say they're better than ever?
They're better, and there's still, there's still things that are up in the air. Still conversations that need to be had with different people, but I know that the feeling in my house feels better. And sometimes the hardest thing, right, is we sometimes we hold back saying things, especially when it comes to family or maybe oftentimes to friends too, because we're worried about what their experience is going to be. Like, what are they going to go through? And we're so willing to not give ourselves the respect of well, what am I going through by not saying these things? Like, what am I going through and how much is this resentment is going to build? How many other people might be suffering or struggling with it? And they're not saying anything because everyone else is just afraid to be the first person to go. So sometimes when you open up that can of worms, yes, it might be difficult for some people and it's easier on a lot of other people. So it kind of is where you have to pick your poison. You have to pick your trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, everyone learns, everyone grows, everyone realizes, okay, this was a mistake. This is what I was doing. I didn't realize how it was being perceived, and I can make that change. But if everyone is so afraid to have conflict, many people can't even have the self-reflection or the ability to change without often a prompting of this is what must change.
I wonder how many relationships were ruined because of the lack of boundaries set. I'm sure it's a very high number. And this is just one of those things that isn't taught a lot, is that how to set those boundaries. So I'm glad that we've kind of learned a little bit more about that. And, maybe this is something we can revisit in a few months where we get a little bit of an update and any more tools, tactics, and tips and tricks that, we've kind of learned on our journey of setting more boundaries.
I think something that we also need to talk about at some point, I'll just kind of briefly mention it, is I think a lot of us, we get so stuck on these are my boundaries. This is what I need you not to do. And then we also get mad at people for not giving us what we needed. Well, we never told them, this is what I need from you. There's two sides of the equation here, right? The boundaries, this is what I need you not to do, or these are the things that I'm not going to allow. And then we also get mad at people, especially I think as men, even women too, as I think about it a little bit more of but you're not meeting my needs in these ways. You're not doing these things for me without ever being clear enough or having the courage to say this is what I need from you. You can't hold somebody accountable for not giving you what you need if you never told them that's what I need.
It's so true. That is very true. I think so oftentimes we think of boundaries as I'm keeping people out, but it's setting the standard. It's kind of what you're saying, right, Chris?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Not as well as you, but
no, I mean, I got it. Message well received. I think, that's, I never thought about that. I know we did the podcast on Monday and I never even considered the opposite of letting people in strategically and giving them the correct path. They don't have yeah, I mean, that makes the most sense, right? How can you not give someone a manual on how to operate most efficiently with you, right? Like if you called me every day at 3 in the morning, right? That's not going to operate very well, right? But if you called me during normal business hours from 9 to 7 or whatever, that my hours are a little longer, but um, that's acceptable. And I think that's such an interesting point. That's going to be one of those things that I'm gonna focus on this weekend and part of next week is how to set. They're almost like reverse boundaries. Think about it.
Yeah.
How to set reverse boundaries and really give the people in my life the proper way to act. Hmm. I wonder
Yeah, it's kind of
how.
like it's like
Yeah.
giving someone like a new complex toy and being like, I'm not going to give you the instruction book.
Yeah.
You have to figure it out. But if you mess up any of this, that's on you. It's I kind of think of like when you're raising a child, like you don't really have a manual and you just try to figure it out and you try and they really can't communicate. And we all know how difficult it is to kind of raise children because of that. But when we're adults, we're still just like, we're just big children. But we have the ability to finally communicate that these are the things that I want and need. And then that person can hear it and decide that's what I want to give you that, or decide I don't want to give you that. But I think too many of us, we hide the things that we need because we're afraid of being rejected. But by hiding the things that we need, we eventually come to the place where we get rejected because our needs were never met. Difficult.
We're
Life is difficult.
we're silly. We're silly creatures, aren't we? We're so silly. I just assume the higher powers upstairs are like, what are they doing, dude? They're overcomplicating it. You're 100% right. I mean, if I got a Lego set without the instructions, it's not gonna get built. It's gonna be a nasty, ugly looking Lego set. Um, and I think that's super. I think that's very important that we give people the proper code of conduct on how to operate and set boundaries, and truly live a more beneficial life and live a more full life. Because
Yeah.
really, life shouldn't be about setting boundaries, enforcing them, telling, they're like, let's go travel. Let's go experience new great things. It shouldn't be all about this, but we've made it, we've made it about this more because we never face it as a society. We just, oh, that's the norm. Yep. The in-laws are always coming over, staying too long, right? That's just the norm. It's like, you got to put your foot down and and it doesn't, and you can kind of see right there in what I just said, I have work to do because it's not fully about putting your foot down and being an asshole, being rude. Sorry, I don't like to swear, but I kind of have to for that one. Um, but it's like your coworker, it's like what he said. It's taking what you're being told, taking what's happening and just letting it sit for a second. I thank you for the feedback. That's very valuable. Here's what I need from you, and here's what I'm going to allow.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, we go to, oh, it's all about the confrontation. But in truth, it's all about the conversation. Like the boundaries we set, the things we need. If you come into it, this is a fight, and if I don't get this, I walk. Well, you're going to end up walking a lot. But if you come in saying, these are the things that I need, and we get to have a conversation about how we can meet these needs or meet these non-needs for our partners, for the people that are in our lives, everyone that you have as a partner, they're a relationship, there's something like that, then we can move forward together. But if we keep it all in the dark and we just expect everyone to pontificate onto what it is that this person needs to feel happy or fulfilled, and then you never get it because they can't figure it out because you don't even know what you need,
Yeah.
then how are we ever going to move forward? Again, this should not be a confrontation. Your boundaries, your needs should not be a confrontation. They should be a conversation. And your boundaries, your needs, they're not truth. They're not the most right thing. And by having that conversation, that's how you move towards that truth of what is actually needed to move forward.
And you are deserving of boundaries. Oftentimes we feel like, just let it go, let it go, let it go. But I heard this quote recently, and let me actually pull it up. It's in my quote book. This is why I have my little quote book so that I can recognize and remember things. But it's how much longer are you going to avoid what you're capable of doing in order to continue doing what is let me read this properly. So, how much longer are you going to avoid what you're capable of doing in order to continue doing what is comfortable doing? So, what that kind of says is, are you living more in comfort and just being okay with what is and accepting that, hey, this is just my life now? I have no control over it. Or are you willing to take life by the reins, take it by the horns, and really just get your control back, get the life you want back? And I hope that these two podcasts, these Monday and Friday episodes, have inspired you more to really have these difficult, and they really shouldn't be difficult, but these conversations with your loved ones, with the people who are pushing your boundaries in a way that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah. I can promise you that it feels better on the other side. I know when you're on one side of the mountain, thinking of going the other side of that mountain and having to climb up it seems daunting. But when you get to the other side, it feels so much better. And it is hard. And like, know that Dominic and I both struggle with this. I struggle with this constantly. And the only way that you can move forward in life, the right way, in my opinion, to move forward in life is to confront the hard things and to keep moving forward. You get to design the life you want. You know, the biggest predictor of your happiness, your joy, your everything in life is you and what you choose to focus on and what you choose to do.
Mhm. And happiness is a choice. Happiness is a choice. And remember, the buffalo and the cow, the buffalo sees the storm and runs to it. The cow runs away from the storm. And it turns out that the buffalo who ran into the storm gets through it faster. And the cow who ran away from the storm ends up running with the storm, staying in it longer. So the more you run away from it, the more you're just going to suffer. So let's get after it. Let's attack the problem and let's actually move to a place of peace beyond the storm. And with that being said, we're going to be moving to our Five Friday feedback viewer mailbag. This is the best part of the week where one of you guys writes in. We try and give our advice and help out as much as we can. So the letterhead of today's episode is, I tried every budgeting app, then this happened. Alrighty, let's see what we got. I'm over it. No howdy on this one? All right, okay. I'm over it. Like done. I'm over the apps, the color-coded spreadsheets, over the just try this one system advice from people who swear this is the thing that finally made budgeting click. I've tried them all. Zero-based budgets, envelope methods, roundups, percent rules, you name it, I gave it a fair shot. Maybe you guys have tried some of those as well. And yet here I am, still buried under consumer debt, still feeling stupid every time I log into my bank account, still wondering, how can I be trying this hard and somehow feel this stuck? What really broke me wasn't one big purchase or some dramatic mistake. It was the slow drip of frustration, the constant feeling of being mostly fine week to week, but never actually getting ahead. I'd come up short, $40, $50, shrug, move a little money around, promise I'd do better next month, and move on. No urgency, no clarity, just quiet avoidance dressed up as optimism. Then came December 26th. You know the day. Everyone's technically working, but nothing meaningful happens. Emails are dead, meetings are fake. It's that weird limbo where the holidays are over, but real life hasn't really turned back on yet. So instead of the doom scrolling or pretending to be productive, I cracked open Excel. No fancy template, no app, just a blank sheet. And for the first time ever, I didn't just budget a month. I budgeted the entire calendar year. All 12 months, every bill, every subscription, every irregular expense I normally forget, car maintenance, gifts, insurance, travel, sinking funds, the stuff that always sneaks up and wrecks my plans. If something only happens once a year, well, I'd divide it by 12. No hiding it, no pretending it, well, it doesn't count. And when I finished, I just stared at the number. If everything goes the way I want it to, if I live the life I think is reasonable, not extravagant, I'm $21,000 short for this year. Not $50 short, not it's a tight month. 21,000 big ones. And here's the weird part. Instead of panic, I felt relief. For the first time, the problem wasn't undeniable. Correction. For the first time, the problem was undeniable, concrete, and honest. I couldn't rationalize it away or smooth it over with transfers and vibes. This wasn't a discipline issue or a motivation issue. This was a math issue. Finally, the fog lifted. Now I actually have something to work with. I can start cutting with intention instead of guilt. I can decide what matters and what doesn't. I can look at my ideal life on paper and say, okay, what do I need to change? Income? Lifestyle? Expectations? I don't know if this is the answer for me, but for the first time in a long time, I feel momentum instead of shame. I'm not broken. The budget wasn't broken. I just wasn't looking far enough ahead. And honestly, that feels like a win. From budgeting tried, motivation died, I'm over the apps and I'm done with the gaps. Well, how about that?
Wow,
How
that's pretty
that
cool.
very cool.
I've been working on a financial planning framework, and I'm not ready to share it yet, but it's ROCS. That's the acronym ROCS, and the first thing in ROC stands for reality. I think too many people, when they're financially stressed, they have zero financial clarity. They're running on assumptions, on hopes, on beliefs, on this is what I think it is in my best case scenario. And without being able to get down to baseline truth, the actual physics of money, can we ever really take the first step forward? So, to our writer, first off, I want to thank you for writing this. What you're describing isn't a failure at all. It sounds like what you're at was a moment of pure exhaustion. And there's a big difference between being exhausted and failing. Most people don't quit because they're lazy. They quit because they've been trying alone for too long. I think it's okay. And I think one of the biggest things that we try to do here at the Fi Guys is normalize something right away. Being over it is often the moment right before clarity. Your burnout that you're feeling, that's feedback. It's your brain saying, you need to stop guessing and show me the actual truth. We have to live in reality.
It's like they say, it's always darkest right before dawn. I got to squeeze in a Batman quote every now and again. I got to do it. I got to do it. But yes, like Chris said, it's always darkest right before dawn. And hey, some of us are in that really dark spot. But if we can hold out, if we can innovate, if we can change what needs to be changed and get honest feedback and honest data, well, then we can actually make serious progress. And it sounds like this person, well, doesn't get much simpler and hard data than what they've got.
Yeah. I think this is the hard part about it when it comes to these budgeting apps, when it comes to these zero-based budgets or the envelope method is they all work, but you have to find what works for you. And I think for this person, the reason that none of those apps work isn't because they're bad with money, like those apps try to tell you to believe. It's because they kept thinking too short term. Week to week budgeting lets you just survive. But for this person, year-long visibility let them actually lead their own life. And for some people, it's going to be different. Maybe there are people whose finances, whose budgets only allow them to survive right now. But when you're only focused and you're driving the car and it's so foggy that you're only looking 5 feet, 10 feet in front of you, it makes it a lot harder to plan in the future. Whoa, what turn am I going to make? Like, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about how am I not going to crash in the next 10 feet? So when this individual was able to find that $21,000 gap, yeah, I'm sure it was super uncomfortable, but it was also a gift because it got them to realize that you didn't create a bigger problem. You finally uncovered what the real freaking problem was. And awareness doesn't make things worse. It just removes the illusion. It removes the facade. It removes the mask that we were telling ourselves to say like, oh, I don't know what the real problem is. At least with this information, we know what it is and we can start to figure out a plan to fix it.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part, right? Is once you have the information that, hey, we know that, like, we all know that there's something going wrong, right? But a lot of us sweep it under the rug. What I love most about this is they didn't hide anymore. They stared into the abyss and they attacked it. They grabbed it, right? And they really faced their fear. And that's an inspiration to us all, an example to us all that, well, the fear we're running from isn't actually as scary as we think. It's just a number. It's just a thing. It's just this or that. It's not a scary monster hiding under your bed. And what I love most is how they attacked it. And they didn't, I mean, they didn't cry. They didn't complain. They didn't do anything. They're like, this is the mission now. This is what we need to do. And I love that. That's just the attitude all of us need in this new year.
And speaking of things that I love that the person said in order to find the truth, what they did is they reflected on what their ideal income in life looked like. And that's pretty huge because I think what most people do is they cut first and they ask questions later. What our reader did or writer did is they did the exact opposite. They defined the life that they wanted and then they let the numbers respond honestly. I think that's one of the hardest things. I think when you go to a financial planner, when you go to someone for advice, they tell you, oh, just do this. Just do this and you'll get where you want to go. But what you really need to do, I think, and this is what I've always tried to approach, is say, like, this is what you're doing now, and what you're doing, this is where this is going to lead to. Do you want to make a change or do you want it to continue? Because if you're sitting there in this fantasy, refusing to deal with reality, you're never really going to be able to implement the changes because the emotional resonance is never there. And here's an important framework. You're not short because you're irresponsible. You're short on funds because your current life is asking more from your income than it can provide for now. And now that you know that, that means that you have the ability to make a change, to either lower what it is that you want in life or to go out and make more money because money does have physics to it. And by physics, I mean cause and effect. There's a natural order. You can't say I'm going to make $100,000 a year, but my lifestyle is going to be $200,000 a year. You can do it for a little while, but it's not sustainable, not in the long term.
Not at all. Not at all. And that's what's so important about addressing it in the now and not sweeping it under the rug. It's that the habits that we have, even the habits that I have today that are healthy for me in my 26, 27-year-old body, right, are not the habits I should probably be having when I'm 65 or 70, right? You got to adjust. You got to always be adjusting and always be kind of shifting and moving with the times. And like we talked about last episode, discipline and flexibility, they go hand in hand, but they're equally as important as one another. You have to be flexible and you have to be disciplined to attack the problem head on, not from the side.
Yeah. Speaking of like attacking the problem, I think a lot of people, when they figure out finally what's wrong, they see a gap and they immediately feel shame about themselves. Like, oh, I'm bad with money. I'm stupid. I'm all these things. But what our writer did and what I want our listeners to try to do is when they see a gap, they see an opportunity. They can see a moment where they say, okay, now I can work with this. Now that I know what's going on, I can work with this. And that mindset shift of seeing a problem, or rather than seeing a problem, seeing an opportunity, that changes everything. And that's something that I struggle with a lot because every time that a problem comes up, I'm like, oh, big problem, going to derail everything. It's over. Rather than seeing like what some of the biggest founders, some of the biggest people that we look up to as entrepreneurs, they saw big quote unquote problems. And they're like, how can I use this to my advantage?
Yeah, and I think that's the difference, right? That's the difference between wolves and sheep, right? That's the difference between people with killer instincts, people without killer instincts, right? Everything is an opportunity. Everything is an opportunity. And that's one of the mental frameworks that is very powerful. That is good to have on the holster, right? When things go bad, it's like Jocko says, right? Hey, we didn't get this promotion. Good. We can be better at what we do now, right? We didn't get the gear we wanted. Good. We'll train harder with the stuff we have to be even more proficient. It's having that mental framework, like we were talking about, where, yeah, things might suck on paper. Good. It gives us an opportunity. The best people in life don't take life seriously, but they play the game hard. And I think that's one of the things that we kind of have to do in this new year is let's take things serious, but not too seriously, right? Let's live a little. Let's make sure that we understand this is a game we're playing and it's a game we play against ourselves. It's not about beating yourself. It's about improving yourself. And that's one of the things that we try to get across every podcast is 1% better every day. And sometimes the 1% better, like for me yesterday, I we ordered donuts at work. I had too many. I had way too I had way too many. You don't want to know how many donuts. I had too many donuts. But the day before, I so I had set a plan, right? This is what I have for breakfast because it has the nutrients, it has the protein, and it keeps my energy regulated, right? And this is what I have for lunch. Perfect day. Next day, terrible day. But it gave me the opportunity to see what the other side was, to see what am I missing? And while I failed that day eating what I needed to eat to hit my goals, I got to see what failure looks like. I got to see what it felt like, what the crashes feel like, right? And that's why it's so important to fail often and to learn from those failures.
Yeah, something that I'm dealing with right now as we try to plan out this Italy trip with my wife and everything is we have to cut back on a lot of our expenses. And what I'm kind of hearing in this person and that they cut out all the budgets is that sometimes cutting doesn't mean punishment. Sometimes cutting your expenses means alignment. And I have to work with this is my opportunity and this is our listeners' opportunity too. It's rather than saying this is what I have to give up, you get to say this is what I'm buying on purpose versus accidentally. This is what I'm choosing. And I think for our listener is the biggest win here isn't that they made a spreadsheet. It's not that they that they did it. That's the first part, but is that they stop lying to themselves in the small little ways every day. That's just $40, just $50. I'll just move some money around. It's totally fine. No more. It'll probably just work out if I just keep on, hoping and cross my fingers hard enough and my toes. Because our writer here, they replaced hope with an actual plan. And that plan actually gives you real confidence, not just belief, because hope is important. Hope gets you out of bed. Hope is the thing that allows you to keep on trying. But if you just rely on hope the entire way, it's going to be very, very difficult because hope waxes and wanes just like your emotions.
It's like using a knife to eat a soup, right? It, it, it can't be done. It can't be. You're going to cut yourself, right? The knife wasn't designed for soup, just as hope wasn't designed to be a plan. Hope is not a strategy. Like Chris said, hope gets you up in the morning. It makes you optimistic about what's to come, about the belief, the self-belief in other people and in yourself. It's a very powerful tool. You can never give up hope. But like we say, hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy.
And there's one more thing I want to tell to our writer, and I hope that they can hear this really clearly, is that you're not behind. You're early on the part where money starts making sense. And that's pretty damn cool because most people never zoom out far enough to have this moment. They never look at the big picture. They never have clarity because they live in the illusion that they've created. They live in the matrix and what their mind has constructed. So you need to be able to keep this lens and revisit the year view regularly. Try to take a wider perspective. We say it often, and I don't think that people understand what I'm saying when I say that. But when we take that wider perspective, we can see the truth. And remember, you don't need motivation because you already found the truth. Now it's just about making those small, honest adjustments over time until we get to where we want to go. And I think lastly, just not only to our writer, but to everyone who's listening to this, you're not alone in this. If this letter resonated with you, or if our listener writing in sounds good to you, or sounds like something that you need, that's not a coincidence. That's community. this stuff gets lighter when we stop carrying it by ourselves. Because you don't have to, but we only do if we keep this all in the dark. So open up, talk to somebody, be a part of the Fi Guys community, be a part of any community. I don't really care. Get out there and like try to help yourself, because you are the most important thing in dictating where your life goes. You and the decisions you make.
With that being said, we're going to be moving on to our win of the week, but thank you for writing in. We really appreciate it. Best of luck with your new year. Alrighty, Chris, what do you have for your win of the week this week?
Yeah, so my win of the week actually hasn't happened yet. It's happening this evening. We are having a cousins night this evening. So both my cousins and my wife's cousins are going to be coming over with their significant others. There's going to be spending time, playing games, having fun. We're actually going to be talking a little bit about boundaries and making sure that this next generation of our families operate, I guess, in a better system than the previous generations have when it comes to setting boundaries, communicating, and just being a closer knit family with everyone understanding one another. So we're really excited about that. That was one of the biggest reasons that we moved back to San Diego, was to be around family. And my wife really put it to me in that, like, you said you wanted these things, but you weren't going out there and doing it. So she was the one that really took it to heart and said, like, we need to do this. And I'm following suit, but I'm going to definitely try harder in this new year to connect with more people. So I don't just sit around saying, like, I wish I was connected with people, without putting in the work. Like I said earlier, you are the biggest determinant to the way your life unfolds. You need to put in the work. You need to take control.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Be the change you want to see. I love it. Well, that's very exciting, Chris. I'm really happy for you. I'm really excited that that's one thing I always admire about you. As you look up to someone, you see him as this, like, wow, this is a great person. But too often do you look up to someone and it's like, oh, they're still the same person they were 5 years ago. That's what I love about you, is you're always changing. You're always pushing and iterating to make yourself better and make your life better. And that's something that I think we can all appreciate. For my win of the week, I've got 2 wins of the week. So one of the things that I've been wanting to get for a while is this little pocket hole jig. It's like it's kind of funny. It's like the most random little thing. It's just a tool so I can drill holes at an angle. And it's so silly. It's so important, but it's one of those things that I've been wanting to get for so long, but I haven't gotten it. But I need it now. And my win of the week is that I bought one, and it's crazy. It's not like $1,000. It's still like $25. It's not that much, right? But the one I wanted is on Amazon, so it's coming in Sunday. But I'm really excited about that. That, and a family friend is letting me use his table saw, which should be coming in tomorrow. Which I'm really excited about, because me using a circular saw on a piece of wood, I can't cut straight to save my life.
Yeah, I've done that before. It is nearly impossible. I made my whole weight set off of a straight. It was terrible.
Yeah. I tried cutting like 2x4s, and even literally 4 inches. Oh, the cut looked horrible. And I was like, dude, I cannot freehand this. I'm not that guy. I don't got the experience for that. But those are going to be my wins of the week. I hope you guys have an amazing wins of your week as well. We'd love to hear it down in the comments, whether that's over there on Spotify or here on YouTube. The options are there. Remember, we are on all podcast platforms. So if you like listening just on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen, go do that there. You don't have to be stuck on YouTube. It's all good. But with that being said, I'm Dom. He's Chris. Remember to make great choices and to always be improving. And we'll see you guys back here on Monday. Later, guys.
Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.